official story. So let's start with the legend. For this we have to go back to the time of Hercules. Hercules, he killed his 6 sons, and in penance for killing his 6 sons, the gods, they sent him on 12 labours. The idea was that if he completed these 12 labours, he would achieve immortality, because he was half man and half god. So he was going on these 12 labours, and on the 4th of these labours, one of his boats went missing. He was sailing all around here. He was looking for the golden fleece with Jason and the Argonauts. One of his boats went missing, and he feared for his crew, and he feared for his boat, and he went looking for them. And what he found all over the coast here was his boat absolutely destroyed. But he found his crewmen and his friends very, very happy. They were lounging around, they were drinking wine, picking tomatoes, eating olives. They loved it here. And they loved it so much that they said, listen, Hercules, we're not going with you on these anymore. What we're going to do is stay here, and we're going to found a city, and we're going to call that city Barca Nova. Means 9th boat. And that, my friends, is the founding story of Barcelona. You don't believe a word of it, right? Okay, I'll go to the other one. For the other one, we have to go back to the time of the Iberian people. Okay, so there was no Portugal, there was no Spain, there was just one big peninsula. And on this peninsula were a whole group of people living, minding their own business. They were a big, huge mix of races. There was Celtic influences, Greek influences, Phoenician influences, all mixed together, not harming a soul. When suddenly, from the north of Africa, Carthage attacked. They actually had their eyes set on Rome. They wanted to go to Rome and conquer Rome. Stupid idea, very stupid idea. Rome was a massive, big empire. Not only did they not conquer Rome, Rome wiped them off the map, then came back down into this area here and decided they were going to set up base. So what they found here was a tiny little fishing village of only about 1,000 people. But it was really well placed. It was on the way to Rome. It had a natural harbour. So they thought, okay, let's set up business here. Let's make this one of our main centres. And they decided they would call it Barquino. Okay, so the Roman name for Barcelona is Barquino. Remember this, I'm going to test you on it later. Okay. Now under the Romans, things were good. Barcelona very quickly flourished. It became a big centre of business. But after a while, it attracted the bad as well as the good. And looking down into the valley, because I don't know if you've noticed, Barcelona is a valley, came these massive, big, Germanic barbarians. And they looked down and they said, there are things down there for us. They came down, they destroyed everything, they took everything they could. The Romans, they built their walls higher trying to defend themselves. But now we're coming to the end of the Roman Empire, and they realize, we can't defend ourselves from these guys. We're just little Latins, and the Germans are massive. What are we going to do? We're going to have to talk to them. Let's talk to them and see if we can cut a deal. So they spoke to them, they said, look, you put us in charge of the tribes who've already taken over. If you do that, we'll become your allies. We'll convert to Christianity, and they were already speaking the Latin language that would become Spanish in Spain, and here in Catalonia would become Catalan, because Catalan is a different language from Spanish. So out of this agreement came this ruling elite of people called the Visigoths. And the Visigoths, they ruled here as a tiny little minority that kind of ruled over the masses for a while. I'm going to jump a few centuries, okay? Up in the north, under Charlemagne, in France, a big empire grew. Down in the south, under Al-Andalus, another big Islamic empire grew. And they absorbed Spain into them in the 8th century. So we have Spain with Islamic rule, with Moorish rule. But if you look around Barcelona, you do not see a lot of Moorish influence, because they only lasted about 80 years in this region here before the French kicked them out. So the French kicked them out, and when they kicked them out, in between this Islamic empire and this French empire, there was a buffer zone. And that little buffer zone is Catalonia. And that is how Catalonia emerged as a kind of a region in its own. And in the beginning, they were ruled by the early French kings. And the early French kings, one day, decided what they were going to do was to appoint a count. And this count is the man that people look to as the real founder of Barcelona. His name is Wilfrid the Hairy. He was very hairy. He had hair all over the place. And he was very close to his French king, who was called Charles the Bald. And one day, Wilfrid was out defending Charles the Bald. And he was wounded. And he was lying there. And he's bleeding all over the place. And Charles came over to see how he was. And he looked down. and he dipped his fingers into Wilfrid's wound, and he ran his forefingers down Wilfrid's golden shield. 4 red stripes on a golden shield. What did he create with this? Again, the flag, the senyera. So the Catalan flag is 4 red stripes on a yellow background. Okay? Now as we go around Barcelona, you're going to see that flag, but you're also going to see it with a triangle and a star. Okay? This is a call for independence. Independence is a huge issue in Barcelona at the moment. They want to be separate from Spain. Okay? I'll tell you about it as we go along. Okay, so we're getting to the end. Bear with me, you're getting there. Spain at the time, it wasn't one king. It wasn't one kingdom the way it is today. It was a whole load of little kingdoms, okay? The 2 biggest of these kingdoms was Castile, with Madrid as its capital, and Aragon, which absorbed Catalonia into it, with Barcelona as its capital. Castile, they were busy taking over the south, fighting off the Moors. So Catalonia, they could look to the Mediterranean. They looked to the Mediterranean and they saw the possibility of an empire of their own. They took over the Balearic Islands, Ibiza, Mallorca, Menorca, all those lovely islands that everyone goes partying on now. They took over Sicily, they took over Sardinia, they took over Valencia. They had their own really good functional empire going on. But things became messy. There was war after war. Eventually the bloodline, it died out, and they had to give the crown to a Castilian from Madrid. And with that, Aragon and Castile merged. It merged and Madrid became the capital, and the growth of Madrid as the capital became Spain as you guys know it today. And Madrid growing meant that Barcelona obviously came down in importance. And this began a pattern where Catalonia again and again and again in history chose the wrong side in history. You're going to see that as we go along. And the first wrong decision they made is in this building right behind you. So get up and I'm going to explain that to you. 100 years to build the cathedral, and the very last thing they put up was this facade here. The whole 200 years that they were building this cathedral, another tiny little insignificant church, which I'll show you later, served as cathedral of the city. This cathedral is dedicated to another young Christian martyr. Her name was Santa Eulalia, and she was a particularly stubborn 13-year-old girl. She would not bow to the Roman gods no matter what they said. And the Roman gods got angrier and angrier and angrier with her, to the point where they invented 13 tortures for her 13 years. And the idea was that they would give her 13 different chances to change her mind. But she would not bend. She wanted to worship God, one Christian God and Jesus, and she would not bend on that. And she survived all